This is your old self, not just a past version of you, but an ongoing echo that shapes how you breathe, how you think, how you respond to the world, without you even realizing it. It's the voice you hear every morning before your feet touch the floor, whispering that nothing will really change. It's the subtle fear you carry into conversations, the tension you hold in your shoulders, the way you prepare for disappointment before life even gives you a reason. The weight isn't always visible. Most of the time, it's not even conscious. It lives in the space between thoughts, in the tone of your inner dialogue, in the emotional state that wakes up before your logical mind does. And because it feels so familiar, you mistake it for who you are. But what if it isn't? What if that inner voice, the one that hesitates, that doubts, that tells you to play it safe, isn't truth, but programming, not your intuition, but a leftover signal from a version of you built in survival mode, a self that was formed not out of vision, but out of defense. You didn't consciously choose to become that version. It was shaped by rejection, by heartbreak, by the moments you weren't chosen, or heard, or seen, over time. It wrapped around you like armor, and eventually, you forgot it was armor at all. It became your normal, and now, here you are, trying to step into a new life while still being loyal to the energy of an old one. That's the paradox most people never see. They try to manifest new outcomes with old frequencies. They visualize something different, but wake up with the same emotional chemistry. They script abundance, but vibrate scarcity. They dream of love, while still carrying the cellular memory of betrayal. So nothing really shifts, not because they don't want it bad enough, but because energy doesn't lie. The quantum field doesn't respond to what you think you deserve. It mirrors what you are in being, not in theory. You are the observer and the observed, the signal and the sender. You collapse reality by the frequency you live in. And every time you wake up and choose that old identity again, whether consciously or not, the field simply delivers coherence. It responds with precision, not out of punishment, but out of alignment. That's why this work isn't about trying harder. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about unbecoming who you never truly were. Because the self that clings to fear, that loops in doubt, that prepares for rejection at every turn, that self is not your truth. It was a strategy. It was survival. And now, it's time to release it. You cannot access a new timeline while being addicted to the energy of the past. You cannot collapse the future while emotionally rehearsing who you used to be. If you want real transformation, the kind that isn't just a temporary high, but a permanent shift, you don't just need better habits. You need a new identity. And that begins not with chasing, but with letting go. Because before you can become, you must first unbecome. The old self doesn't go quietly. It clings. Not because it's evil or broken, but because it believes it's keeping you safe. And in many ways, it has. That identity, the one shaped by pain, failure, rejection, was never built for expansion. It was built for survival. It showed up when no one else did. It carried you through the storm. It got you here. But now, it's time to ask the question that changes everything. Is survival still the goal? Because safety isn't the same as freedom, and comfort isn't the same as alignment. There comes a point where you realize the identity that once protected you is now limiting you. The very walls that shielded you are now keeping life out. You're not stuck because you're broken. You're stuck because you've outgrown the energetic suit you've been wearing for years, and your system doesn't know what to do without it. But unbecoming isn't destruction. It's not about tearing yourself down. It's about gently, intentionally peeling away everything that isn't you. The fear that was passed down, the shame you absorbed but never earned, the story you've told yourself for so long that it started to feel like truth. Underneath it all, there's something untouched, something original, something real. And the goal isn't to invent a new self from scratch. It's to remember the self that was always there, buried under layers of expectation and defense. You were not born afraid. You learned fear. You weren't born to shrink. You learned to apologize for your light. And now, as you begin this process of return, not forward, but inward, you'll start to feel the friction between who you've been and who you're becoming. It won't always feel graceful. There will be moments where the old self screams louder than ever, not because it's gaining power, but because it knows it's being released. Let that be your sign. When the fear grows louder, you're on the edge of transformation. When the patterns try to reassert themselves, it means the signal is changing. And in those moments, remember, you are not failing. You are rewiring. You are interrupting a loop that's been running for years, maybe decades. That takes courage. That takes repetition. That takes love. This work is not about fixing what's broken. It's about remembering what's whole. You don't need to strive for a version of yourself that's already waiting in the quantum field. You simply need to match its vibration. The version of you who feels free, who lives from truth, who breathes without bracing, is not a future ideal. They exist right now, but you cannot meet them from the energy of who you used to be. You must become vibrationally unavailable for your past. That's the essence of unbecoming. It's not that you need to become something more. It's that you've finally decided to stop being something less. And that single decision, that quiet moment of internal clarity, begins to shift everything. Because the quantum field doesn't wait for effort. It responds to frequency. The moment you stop resonating with the old story, reality begins to reconfigure. And that's when the loop starts to crack. That's when the new signal gets sent. That's when the past begins to loosen its grip. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped feeding it. Now, something new is waking up. Something ancient, yet familiar. And it's not coming from outside you. It's rising from within. You wake up and think you have a fresh start, a blank slate. But before your conscious mind can even finish that thought, something deeper has already made the decision for you. Before you reach for your phone, before your eyes fully open, your body has already chosen who you'll be today. And it's not new. It's familiar. It's predictable. It's the same sequence of thoughts, the same emotional undercurrent, the same postures and micro-reactions that you've been rehearsing for years. You think you're waking up in the present moment, but your nervous system is already halfway into the past. This is the hidden machinery of your identity, working silently, automatically, beneath the surface. The body remembers not just events, but states. It remembers fear, disappointment, caution, not as concepts, but as chemistry, over time. These patterns settle into your biology, and you stop responding to what's actually in front of you. You respond to echoes, ghosts of what was. You live in déjà vu, not because life is repetitive, but because you are repeating it, energetically, emotionally, physiologically. According to Dr. Joe Dispenza, by the time you're 35, 95% of who you are is a memorized set of reactions, beliefs, behaviors, and emotional patterns. That means most of what you call you is not conscious choice. It's reflex. It's a body running on past instructions, long after the situations that created them have passed. And this is where transformation gets real. Because to change your life, you don't just need new thoughts. You need to retrain your body to stop expecting the old emotions. You need to interrupt the anticipation of pain, the muscle memory of self-doubt, the way your breath shortens every time uncertainty walks into the room. Change isn't about effort alone, it's about access. And right now, your body is the gatekeeper. Think about that. If your nervous system is calibrated for fear, no amount of positive thinking will shift your reality until that calibration changes. You can visualize abundance, but if your body is still expecting scarcity, You will unconsciously block the very opportunities you asked for. Not because you're unworthy, but because your system doesn't yet recognize that version of life as safe. And that's not your fault. Somewhere in your past, maybe in a moment you barely remember, your body decided that contraction was safer than expansion. That bracing was better than being caught off guard, that it was smarter to expect less than to risk disappointment. And that decision, made long ago in self-protection, has been driving your chemistry ever since. But now you know, and awareness is power, because once you see the pattern, you can choose not to repeat it. Once you realize your body is reacting to old programming, you can begin the slow, loving work of reteaching it safety. Not through force, but through presence, through stillness, through ritual, through the breath that says, I am no longer who I was. The body won't believe you overnight, but it will learn. It will shift. It will respond. Because just as it was conditioned into fear, it can be conditioned into freedom. The first step is simple. Even if it isn't easy, notice. When the tension returns, when the resistance rises, when your shoulders tighten or your gut drops, don't push it away. Witness it. And in that moment, remind yourself, this isn't destiny, it's memory, and you're not here to repeat it. You're here to release it. Because who you truly are is not hiding in the past. It's waiting in a different vibration, one your body is learning how to feel again. What if your emotions aren't just personal experiences, but energetic signals? What if every time you feel unworthy, or anxious, or ashamed, you're not just reacting, you're broadcasting? This is the deeper layer most never uncover. The field, the quantum fabric of reality, doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to who you are being, not the surface thoughts, but the vibrational undercurrent you live in every day. You might say you want love, but if your emotional baseline is, I am not enough, you will push intimacy away without even realizing it. You might dream of abundance, but if your nervous system is tuned to fear, you'll sabotage the very doorways opening in front of you. Because emotion is energy. It's not random. It's not passive. It's a signal. And the quantum field is always listening, not with ears, but with resonance. The state you carry, moment to moment, hour by hour, is the instruction set you're sending to the universe. You've been taught to say the right affirmations, to think the right thoughts, to visualize success. But if the frequency underneath is rooted in lack, no amount of positive language can override the signal. Energy is precise. It mirrors coherence, not words. That's why healing doesn't happen in the intellect. It happens in the body, in the emotion, in the breath, because that's where the broadcast originates. And until that signal changes, you'll keep collapsing timelines that match your past, not your potential. It's a painful truth, but a liberating one. Because it means you're not broken, you're not cursed, you're just aligned. Perhaps unconsciously, with an outdated frequency. And if that's true, if emotion is practice, not punishment, then you can change it. You can recondition the signal. But first, you must feel it. You must become aware of the emotion you spend the most time in. Is it regret? Anger? Shame? Doubt? Don't judge it. Just witness it. Recognize it not as a flaw, but as a habit, a chemical identity your body has come to expect. And understand that the longer you rehearse that emotion, the more solid your old self becomes. Because the old self is not just a thought pattern, it's a magnetic field. It draws in experiences that confirm its story. It filters out everything that contradicts what it believes, and it becomes a closed circuit, an energetic echo chamber. But the moment you see it for what it is, the loop begins to break. Because now, you are no longer just feeling the emotion, you are observing it. And that changes everything. When you realize that your emotional signature is not truth, but repetition. You reclaim the power to change your frequency. You realize that joy, peace, trust, these are not outcomes. They are choices. Frequencies you can learn to embody even before your outer world shifts. And when you do, the field responds. Not because it's magic, but because it's mathematics. You are becoming energetically available for a new reality. Not someday, not after everything changes, but now, in this very moment. You don't have to wait to feel the emotion of your future. You just have to practice it long enough for your body to believe it's real. Because when it does, it stops looking for proof. It becomes the proof. That's when the shift happens, not outside of you, but within you. And when that internal broadcast changes, the external world has no choice but to follow. Change doesn't begin with force. It begins with awareness. And that's where most people miss the mark, not because they lack discipline, but because they're still merging with the pattern they're trying to change. You can't rewrite a story if you still believe you are the character trapped inside it. The moment you identify with your fear, your doubt, your pain, it owns you. But the moment you witness it, really witness it, with presence instead of judgment, something fundamental shifts. In quantum physics, this is known as the observer effect. The act of observing a particle changes its behavior. But this isn't just theoretical, it's deeply personal. When you become aware of the pattern, when you observe the emotion instead of being swept away by it, you collapse its power. You return to the role of the conscious creator. That's why witnessing is not passive. It's transformational. It's the first moment of freedom. Because the old self thrives in unconscious repetition. It needs you to stay asleep, to keep reacting, to keep looping. But when you look it in the eye with stillness and say, "I see you," it begins to dissolve, not because you destroyed it, but because you no longer believe it's you. And this is not about shame. This is not about self-hate. This is about self-liberation, about stepping out of the emotional fog and into clarity, about recognizing that the self you've been rehearsing was never the final version, just a placeholder. Until you remembered who you really are, the power isn't in suppressing your emotions. It's in holding them with presence. It's in creating space between the trigger and the reaction. That space is where choice lives. That space is where identity shifts. That space is where timelines collapse and new ones begin. So the next time the old emotion rises, don't panic. Don't rush to override it. Just pause. Feel it fully. Breathe and watch. Because in that moment of witnessing, you become the observer. And in quantum terms, the observer is the one who decides what becomes real. That's the doorway. That's the first crack of light in a completely different reality. And it doesn't require a masterclass or a guru or a breakthrough. It just requires willingness to see clearly and to stop confusing the signal of your past with the truth of your essence. Because the moment you stop identifying with the old self, even for just a breath, you make space for a new one to emerge. And that space, that single breath of conscious awareness, can hold more transformation than years of effort ever could. Now that you've remembered how to witness, you're finally ready to realign. Now that you can witness the old self without merging with it, something powerful becomes possible. Not just observing your frequency, but aligning it. Not just changing your thoughts, but becoming the signal your future has been waiting for. This is the deeper truth most manifestation teachings gloss over. The quantum field doesn't respond to your vision board, your spoken affirmations, or your goals written in ink. It responds to the coherence between your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, and your energy. That coherence is the energetic yes the universe has been listening for. It's not about reciting what you want once in the morning and then spending the rest of the day swimming in fear. It's not about scripting abundance while vibrating worry. That kind of dissonance sends a mixed signal, one that keeps you in the waiting room of your own life, wondering why nothing's shifting. Because coherence isn't something you think about, It's something you are. It's the alignment of your internal systems, heart, mind, breath, body, operating from the same truth. When that happens, you stop trying to manifest and start embodying. You stop forcing and start flowing. You stop chasing outcomes and begin drawing in experiences that match who you've already decided to be. Coherence isn't intensity. It's clarity. It's the calm, knowing that your state of being is enough to magnetize what you once had to hustle for. It's not a surge of motivation. It's the steady current of alignment. And that current sends out a broadcast stronger than anything you could ever say aloud. So ask yourself, what signal am I really sending? Am I living from the vibration of trust? Or am I saying the word trust while bracing for disappointment? Am I acting from gratitude? Or just hoping that if I pretend to be thankful, life might reward me? The universe doesn't rearrange itself because you want it to. It rearranges when you become the version of you who already lives in the life you seek. Because that version of you already exists, not as an ideal, but as a frequency. And the only thing separating you from it is the gap between knowing and being. This is why you can't fake energy. The field is intelligent. It doesn't read your words. It reads your coherence. And coherence doesn't require perfection. It requires consistency. The more you return to alignment, not just in moments of inspiration, but in the quiet, ordinary spaces of your life, the more your external world begins to echo that alignment back to you. Think of coherence like tuning a radio. You don't just turn the dial once and expect perfect sound forever. You adjust, you fine-tune, you stay present, because when the signal is clear, the music plays, not as background noise, but as your new reality. And when you become the signal, when your entire being resonates with the timeline you've been seeking, the quantum field doesn't have a choice. It reflects you, precisely, instantly, without exception. So don't chase, don't force, don't wait for proof. Become the proof, and let reality catch up to who you've already chosen to be. Most people try to reach their future by looking outward, grasping, forcing, adjusting things in their environment. They believe that if they just do more, earn more, prove more, the breakthrough will come. But energy doesn't work that way. Reality doesn't bend because you chase harder. It bends when you finally match the version of yourself who no longer needs to chase. This is where alignment begins. Not with effort, but with embodiment. The future version of you, the one living the life you keep dreaming of, doesn't just think differently. They are different. They feel different in their skin. They respond to challenge with groundedness instead of panic. They speak with quiet clarity instead of performative confidence. They don't hope for breakthroughs. They are the breakthrough. So instead of asking, "How do I get there?" ask this: how does that version of me walk into a room? How do they breathe? How do they carry themselves when no one's watching? Because alignment isn't a thought process. It's a full-body decision. And once you make it, everything begins to shift, sometimes subtly, sometimes radically, but always with precision. Every thought you think is an electrical signal. Every emotion you feel radiates magnetically, together. They form your vibrational broadcast, the message your body is sending to the quantum field, moment by moment. And that message isn't, "This is what I want." It's, "This is who I am." So the real question is, who are you being? Are you embodying the frequency of someone who trusts life, or someone who prepares for disappointment? Are you moving through the world like someone who knows they're supported, or someone who's still apologizing for taking up space? You don't attract what you want. You attract what you've become available for. You align with what your energy says yes to, not what your mind says it wishes for. That's why most manifestation efforts feel like pushing a boulder uphill. You're trying to build a future on the foundation of an identity that's still broadcasting lack, or fear, or unworthiness. And no matter how compelling your goals are, the structure will always collapse if the ground beneath hasn't shifted. But when you shift first, when you recalibrate who you're being, the quantum field mirrors it instantly. Not always in physical form right away, but in signs, in sensations, in sudden clarity that lets you know you've tuned into something real. It's not a performance. It's not an act. It's a frequency. And when you're aligned with the right version of you, the one who no longer needs to beg, hustle, or prove, that's when life starts responding in ways that feel effortless, even miraculous. So stop asking when the breakthrough will happen. Start asking, what part of me is still waiting to become? Because the life you're seeking doesn't arrive as a reward. It unfolds as a reflection. And the reflection always begins within. The version of you who lives in alignment with your deepest truth, who speaks with conviction, walks with ease, loves without fear. That version isn't a fantasy. They're not far away. They're not waiting at the end of a long road of self-improvement. They already exist, right now, in this very moment, in a different vibrational pattern. This is where both science and spirit begin to converge. In quantum physics, we call it the multiverse, a field of infinite possibilities, where every timeline exists simultaneously. In spiritual language, it's your divine potential. Either way, the message is the same. Reality is not linear. Time is not fixed. And you are not becoming. You are selecting. Every moment is a portal, a choice point. And your vibration, your emotional state, your beliefs, your self-image is the selector. You don't manifest your future as much as you tune into it. You don't create your higher self from scratch. You remember them. You align with their frequency. You collapse the distance between the now you and the already you, not by striving, but by resonating. This isn't metaphor. It's physics. The quantum field is a vast sea of potential, but it doesn't move for desire alone. It responds to coherence, to clarity, to embodiment. And right now, your highest self is already vibrating in the timeline where your vision is real, where your wounds have become wisdom, where your power isn't questioned, it's owned. The only thing keeping you from that version of you is the story that says, they're somewhere out there. The idea that you have to earn them, chase them, suffer your way into becoming them. But you don't have to build the bridge. You are the bridge. You collapse the distance the moment you decide to stop vibrating from fear and start vibrating from faith. Not blind faith in something outside you, but trust in the part of you that's always known. The still, quiet knowing that whispers, you're already home. So pause for a moment. Close your eyes. Feel into the space behind your thoughts, beneath your habits, beyond your history. There, you'll find a version of yourself who isn't waiting. They're living, breathing, aligned, ready, not better, not perfect, but true. And the only thing they need from you is this: to stop asking for permission, to stop negotiating with the past, and to start remembering that becoming them was never about addition. It was always about subtraction, peeling back everything that's not you until all that's left is you. That's the shift. That's the gateway. And once you step into that frequency, you'll realize something profound. You're not the dreamer chasing a vision. You're the embodiment of a vision that's already awake. Knowing that your higher self already exists is powerful, but living as them, that's where the transformation becomes real. Because information, no matter how profound, doesn't change your life until it becomes embodied, until it moves from theory into ritual, from insight into identity. This is where the shift stops being intellectual and starts becoming vibrational. You're not here to perform a ceremony. You're here to reset your identity, not by trying harder, not by forcing change, but by collapsing the version of you that no longer belongs to the timeline you're stepping into. And it begins, like all true change does, with recognition. Step 1. Name the old self, not to shame it, but to make it visible. You cannot release what you haven't acknowledged. So give it a name, a phrase, a symbol. The you that always doubted, that overthought, that clung to safety. Maybe it's the overachiever. Maybe it's the one who settled. Whatever arises, claim it, see it, thank it. It helped you survive. But it's not the one who will carry you forward. Step 2. The ritual of release. Visualize yourself holding that identity like a heavy backpack. A suitcase packed with old stories, emotional patterns, and outdated scripts. Feel the weight, the exhaustion, and then, in your mind, watch yourself set it down. Let it drop to the ground. Not in anger, in reverence, in completion. You don't need to destroy it. You simply need to stop carrying it. Step 3. Embody the new self. Right here, right now. Stand or sit in the posture of the version of you who already lives in the timeline you desire. Let your breath shift. Let your eyes soften. Let your energy change. Don't pretend. Be not the future you, but the true you. The one who moves from intuition, who radiates calm power, who no longer needs to chase because they've become what they once sought. Step 4. Anchor the identity, not with words alone, but with presence. Say this out loud, not as a mantra, but as a declaration. I no longer collapse the past. I tune into who I truly am. Repeat it slowly. Let it echo through your system. Let your nervous system hear it. Let your energy field absorb it. Speak it not from your lips, but from your being, because every cell in your body is listening. And more importantly, so is the field. This is not magic. This is mathematics. When you vibrate as the new self, the quantum field begins to rearrange around that frequency. Possibilities you couldn't see before start to emerge. People who resonate with your new timeline begin to appear. Reality responds. Not because you begged it to, but because you became someone new. And step 5. This is where it becomes a living practice. Ritual is not a one-time event. It's a frequency you return to every time the old self tries to re-enter. Not to fight it, but to remind it. Thank you, but I no longer live there. Each time you choose again, you reinforce the shift. You stabilize the signal. You become the new vibration, not as a temporary state, but as a new baseline. And that's when everything begins to bend. Not because you change the world, but because you change the you who meets the world. This is where the real journey begins. Not in the ritual itself, but in the moments after. The quiet mornings, the stressful meetings, the unexpected news, the doubt that creeps back in when no one's watching. Transformation doesn't happen in the peaks of inspiration. It happens in the practice of presence, in the decision you make before your feet hit the floor, in the pause between trigger and reaction, in the way you breathe when fear knocks, and the way you choose not to answer the door. Because the old self will try to return, not to sabotage you, but to be seen. It will whisper the old stories, recreate familiar emotions, and ask you to collapse back into what was. But now you know better. Now you have something deeper than willpower. You have awareness. And that awareness gives you choice. Every morning, before the world comes in, ask yourself one simple question. Which version of me will collapse reality today? Will it be the self shaped by survival, by defense, by inherited fear? Or will it be the self that moves from trust, from clarity, from coherence? You get to choose, not once, but over and over again. Because identity is not a fixed thing. It's a practiced frequency. And every emotion you feel, every belief you reinforce, every breath you take is either aligning you with your expanded timeline or pulling you back into the past. But here's what most people miss. You don't need to get it perfect. You just need to stay aware. You just need to return, to choose again, and again, and again. Each time you do, the signal gets stronger, the field responds faster, Synchronicities arrive with more precision. People reflect your new vibration without even knowing why. Life begins to organize itself around your alignment, not because the universe is finally working, but because you are. You've stopped collapsing the past. You've stopped broadcasting the frequency of fear. You've changed the signal, and that change has consequences. Beautiful ones, unexpected ones, timeline-shifting ones. Some of them will show up instantly. A rush of clarity, a release of tension, a conversation that opens a door you didn't know was there. Others will arrive quietly, slowly, building over days or weeks, until one morning you look around and realize you're living inside a reality that once only existed in your highest vision. Not because you forced it, but because you remembered how to become it. So as we close this space, not with an ending, but with an invitation, remember this. You are not here to chase transformation. You are here to embody it, not once, but daily, not perfectly, but fully. Let your life be the ritual. Let your presence be the declaration. Let your breath be the signal that tells the field, I remember who I am, because the field is always listening. And now that you've remembered, it's already responding. If this message stirred something in you, something old, something sacred, something that felt like remembrance, then don't let it fade. Let it echo. Let it become real. Speak to your future self. Speak to the field. Leave your signature in the space between us, not just a comment, but a declaration. Write this. The old me has been released. Let that sentence carry your new frequency. Let it mark the moment you stopped just listening and started becoming. Not for validation, not for applause, but for alignment. And if this space felt like more than content, if it felt like coming home to a version of you that's been waiting, then stay close. This isn't just a channel, it's a field, a frequency, a shared remembering. So subscribe, not just to keep watching, but to keep awakening, to stay coherent, to stay elevated. Because the shift is not just personal, it's collective. And the more of us who vibrate as our highest selves, the more this world begins to reflect that truth back to all of us. You are not alone in this. You are part of a new signal, and reality is already listening.